Welcome to our bite-sized episodes of the Cardiff Met Sports Coaching Hub podcast, brought to you direct from the CRiC Conference 2024. Enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to this, our first recording of a live podcast at the CRiC 2024 conference at the University of Northumbria up in Newcastle. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Han-Wool Lee. Han-Wool, why don't you start with a quick introduction about yourself? What's your current role and what is it that you've just presented at CRiC for us?
Okay, my name is Han-Wool. I'm a postdoc research fellow at Seoul National University in South Korea. Before this role, I studied master and doctorate in sports coaching at Cardiff Met over the last 5 years. So I was and is a part of the Cardiff Met family. And I presented my doctoral thesis project, which was about the critical examination of the production of space in coaching. So I want to call it was a spatial analysis. How coaching spaces are produced by those so-called members.
Perfect. And you mentioned that a student at Cardiff Met, it would be bereft of me not to mention just how well you spoke in the parallel session there, and versus, I suppose, where we've crossed paths before in classrooms on the DSC and the Masters and things like that. You seem to go from strength to strength. I'm always really impressed by you, Han-Wool. You did incredibly well. And a really insightful presentation, not something that I'd considered before. This notion of, I suppose, spatial examination, particularly with this Lefevrean lens, is something that I think is quite novel. And as you mentioned in the presentation, not something that's really been looked into in sport coaching. Can you tell me a little bit about where that idea came from? Where did you stumble on Lefevre, and where did you find that connection to his work specifically?
Well, I should start from my coaching experience in the UK, because I had a football background in South Korea for more than 10 years as an athlete, full-time athlete. Then I came to Cardiff to study sports coaching and start coaching there. And I remember the day one of my coaching experience, should I say. I went to the football pitch and I could see some of the players and some of the few people who look like coach, because I could see a different kits from compared to players. But what I feel really surprised was I could see a very close kinship between the members, like those called like coaches and athletes. That I could listen, like those looks like coach say the term mate to when they call like their players. There was like a cultural shock for me, because I couldn't imagine that doing it in South Korea, because there's rigid hierarchy, should I say, or something like a barrier between the relationship.
Yeah.
Then I thought like the first time like it should be like a cultural difference. From my master's journey, I studied a lot of like social thinkers and some of like a sociologically informed research in coaching using like a Foucault, Bourdieu, Goffman. And then I could see like coaching should be like a relational part of like some of the complexity within the relationship between coach and athletes. And there should be no obvious picture of the relationship. But the more I studied, the more I read, the more I found like, even though there are lots of substantial studies about the relational dimension of coaching, but there are lack of studies think about like a space, even though we always interact with others within a particular space, even such as training ground, like a performance analysis in a analysis lab. So I think, there's the moment that I found a lacuna where I can be brave and adventurous as a young researcher. I started read wider, not just in coaching, but outside coaching, like the sociology of sports, gender study, geography. Then, I found some of the articles use Lefevre. There's the moment that I found, that I encountered Henry Lefevre.
And so what was it specifically about his work that you connected with? Was it the ideas? Was it because it was novel? How did you sort of grasp it and decide, right, this is something I really want to work with?
I think both. In relation to your question, it was novel, and it is still novel for me. And When I engage reading Lefebvre's words and some of the literature used Henry Lefebvre, it is not just about space, really, should I say. They still talk about the space, some of the physical space or material space. But the prime attention, the primary analysis attention is more about the body, how the members produce the space, so how the space become lived. I found really, really fascinated about that point, like a philosophical point or theoretical point. And yeah, because I think it should be stems from my experience because I coach in Cardiff. I studied in Cardiff. I could see lots of cultural difference. Some of the embodiment, should I say? I get used to some of the South Korean culture, like a politeness, like a bowing to all the people. But like in terms of like British people, they might not able to understand it properly. They can see it. Oh, it is different, but then some people say why they're doing it, why they're bowing to it, but I already get used to it, isn't it? So the more I read Lefebvre, the more I think of my experience, some of the embodiment, some of the cultural difference, like a different space between the two different countries. So that makes me more feel like it's really, really fascinating. It's not just space, it's more about body, relationship, the relationship between people in their space. I guess there's a culture, there's a culture, there's all some of the discourse, So there's the point I feel really interested in Lefebvre.
Great, super. And so we've used that to critically examine the space and time of a football club. You followed that football club for a period of 6 months or more. What were some of the key findings? What were the important bits coming out of it?
I think the main findings are about some of the practical doings the coaches do and the athletes do in a daily basis or weekly basis. Some of the things they take for granted, but they do that every day when they engage in coaching. So, it was after 7 months ethnographic study. I participate in almost every session, even like a match day. And 2 months goes, I feel a bit bored because I feel I already get used to their rhythms, their routines, and it's really hard for me to see something new. And that's the point I try to use interviews and auto photography, which was good, in order to interrogate why members behave in such a way within the training room or changing room or like analysis lab. And some of the findings about the instruction, intervention, or punishments of coaches, some of the critique of that everyday practical doings of, I think there's a major part of the findings in my project is really critique of why they're doing it. What is the meaning of the doing of instruction, intervention, and or punishment? It's not. I'm trying not to talk about some of the consequences of doing it because I feel a bit tired of it because I feel lots of people talk about, so for example, punishment is really harmful to athletes. There's a really huge level of control in the power relation hierarchy. But lack of people pay attention to why coaches punish the athletes. What is the meaning by the doing of punishment? Why they instruct? Why they coach in such a way? So that is the things I'm really, really interested. I'm still interested in some of the parts of that. Yeah.
Perfect. And so just to wrap up then, what's the implication of what you've presented here and the work that you've done? Is there a particular call here for coaches? Is it to think more carefully about what they do, or is this something, because of how novel it is, that you think requires a bit more exploration, and so it's about sort of calling for a little bit more exploration, particularly using this lens, but with some of your ideas?
Yeah, in relation to your question, I think I should talk about social theory, even though I'm trying not to say like Lefebvre is a sociology, but there is a sociology in his work. using some of the social theories, or I believe Lefevbre works, they make us see the familiar, unfamiliar. That really challenges the things we do in a daily basis. So in relation to this point, the major implication of the finding should be like coaches should understand some of the things they do, and borrowing some theoretical terms, they could be in an agency over some of the things they do on a daily basis. And such a difference can make a difference, I believe, in terms of, even though, they make some session plans from coach meeting, perhaps before training, every training session, they do as what they prepare. Some of the linear process, I think there's the things that really coaches take for granted. So I think there should be, I want them really careful of what they're doing. Why are we doing in such a way? Some of the coach meeting, why we make a session plan. So some of the critical insights of the doing they do, even on the pitch. Why we? Even though I feel, for example, I perceive some of the things that is not going well. I feel really frustrated because I already noticed some players making frequent mistakes that I already perceive is not going well. Mm-hmm. And I feel frustrated. I feel a bit anger, and some coaches just use punishment or just call all the players to come to where he stood and scolding and let them running without the ball, some of the punishments. Mm-hmm. But rather than just doing it because of emotional circumstances, because they feel really anger or frustrated, but I want them be more critical of, even though they perceive it is not going well, they feel anger and frustrated, but there obviously should room for them to think, rather than it's going. I know it is going well, but what is something else that I can observe at this point? It is like perhaps players are not interested in the sessions, or they feel a bit bored of the sessions, or they might see I couldn't get anything from this session. This session is a bit poor. Or some of these some of the realms of the unmarked space in situ. So there is some of the potential romantic realms that I want the coach to think about by learning some of the things from this project.
Perfect. Hanwell, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. That's 2 debuts this weekend, a debut at CRiC and a debut on the Sports Coaching Hub podcast. I hear the rumours are that we're going to invite you back, and you're going to be doing a slightly longer episode for us a little bit later on down the line on one of your other papers. So we're really looking forward to welcome you on for a full show later on down the line. But thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the CRiC.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you want to know a little bit more about CRiC, head to the website cricsportcoaching.com, and you can follow along on Twitter as well at @cric_SCR.